Remember those days when a good-natured "God bless you" came along with your change at the corner market? What a wonderful time it was. America was not at war with itself, and we were strong men and women of God, standing up without a second thought and fearless to share our hope of glory. Amidst the flags, crosses, and white picket fences of our town, life and faith was easy. The most difficult battle in the church seemed to be getting up after a Sunday picnic. But something changed in the midst of our plans for bigger buildings and more professional holiday programs. Something significant happened. This broken, deeply fractured and hurting world has tried to glue all the pieces back together on its own, without us, without God. And the reality has come that something much more real will be required from God's people. All we see is this present darkness that seems to surround us. And yet it is here where the illuminated gospel shines brightest before a world looking for a path. Tonight, we honor the life and work of one man who is making the invisible kingdom visible. For it may be two simple words that best describe how he has impacted our world. Civil words of unwavering truth, with the obedience to follow our Lord's call no matter where it leads. Civil obedience. Robert P. George is McCormick Professor of Jurisprudence and Director of the James Madison Program in American Ideals and Institutions at Princeton University. He also regularly teaches at Harvard Law School as a visiting professor. His unceasing voice carries throughout the halls of our nation's most important institutions. His observations on the issues of our time resonate in the highest of places.
Plato taught, and C.S. Lewis affirmed, that in a properly ordered soul, in a person who really has it together, reason will be in control, and passion will be under the control of reason, and reason will direct passion to the good and the right. So our passions will be passions for doing what's good, what's virtuous, what's noble, what's upright.
He has served as chairman of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, the President's Council on Bioethics, and as a presidential appointee to the United States Commission on Civil Rights, and is a former judicial fellow at the U.S. Supreme Court. His articles defending religious freedom on the critical issues of our day have appeared in countless journals, not to mention the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. With a demeanor of genuine compassion and mutual respect, Professor George has even made some unexpected friendships with some of his more liberal counterparts.
I love Cornell because Cornell's a lover of truth. We disagree about many things, but that in a certain sense gets relativized. Yes, we have important differences, but they're relativized because the common ground that creates the bond of love between us is a love of the truth.
So tonight, we honor a light in the darkness. Tonight, we honor the life and work of Professor Robert P. George.
Like William Wilberforce, we want this evening to instruct and to inspire. What does it look like for us to walk in these footsteps? And so we're going to hear from a lot of individuals. First of all, we're going to begin talking about, hearing about Professor George's work in defending the vulnerable, particularly the unborn and persecuted minorities. So we're going to begin with a video greeting from Cardinal Donald Wuerl, and then hear from Dr. Russell Moore from the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, and then the Honorable Congressman Frank Wolf.
It's a great pleasure for me to join all of you as we celebrate the William Wilberforce Award, this year being given to Professor Robert George, Robbie as everybody calls him, and to recognize his extraordinary contribution. A contribution to not only the world of academia, where he has already made his mark, but to the world of civil discourse, to the world of discussion of profound issues, significant issues that touch all of us. I want to salute Professor George, but I also want to thank him.
I wonder how many children are alive today because of his witness to the humanity of the unborn. not only because of his work in the legislative arena, but how many people have overheard conversations, who have heard carefully crafted, reasoned arguments that have enabled them to make decisions that they would later have regretted.
Chuck Colson and I when I had tough votes, I used to call Chuck many times on a Sunday night. And Chuck loved Robbie and used to talk about Robbie. Chuck Colson, who created this award, had this to say about Professor George. He said, "Few Christians in our culture live out their worldview as consistently or as effectively as does this brilliant young man. His uncompromising position on abortion, as Russell just talked about, euthanasia, genetic engineering, and other life issues have made him conspicuous and highly respected on the Princeton campus." Robbie George, as many of you know, and as Timothy George said, put together the Manhattan Declaration. I'm a signer of the Manhattan Declaration. They were prescient on the issue of religious liberty. They put it in. I don't know how it all got in, what the debates were, but they were ahead of their time. And we are losing religious liberty in this country, and of course what's taking place around the world.
Still, he took that considerable academic risk, and we are the beneficiaries. And he's also left us a sort of pattern or template for how all the academics who have studied, some at Witherspoon, some by his books at a distance, can become analytically rigorous themselves. They need to be truthful, work like crazy, and learn early in their career how to bilocate, so they can talk at crisis pregnancy centers and also at Harvard. Third and final point, Robbie came along at a time in intellectual history when reason itself was on the cutting board. I don't any longer say, for instance, that the arguments I'm hearing on abortion or about marriage are unreasonable. I call them reasonless. They're just reasonless. They're not even in the bell curve of reason in many cases. Robbie's work does nothing less than defend the polity's continuing need, the fact that they deserve to hear reason. For this, the entire Academy should be grateful.
It is a rare combination, respect and fear. And I think this is a great lesson for us. And it's certainly the lesson for me, as it has been for this 20 or so years, to understand how this way of working, which has been described elsewhere too, is exemplary.
And Robbie understood, and he was teaching me, that it's only standing together when we show America, only when we show America that we see the encroachment on one faith community's freedom as an assault on us all, only then can the battle ultimately be won. Robbie called this once a pan-Orthodox alliance. What Timothy George, I think, called the ecumenism of the trenches. It's an ecumenism, and here I'm using Robbie's words, that takes religious faith and therefore religious differences seriously, neither ignoring nor trivializing the important points of doctrine and discipline. It doesn't pretend that all religions are equally true or that doctrinal differences doesn't matter. Rather, Robbie, I think, understands and teaches us that precisely because we take religious truth and faith seriously, therefore we fight for the freedom of us all.
One personal story I want to share that serves to illustrate the kind of man Dr. George is, especially concerning his zeal for valuing ideas and truth as virtues in themselves, as well as his attentiveness to young voices. Though I consider myself an advocate for the natural law, which is something that Dr. George has devoted his entire career to, last year I made the mistake of writing an article that criticized a certain formulation of the natural law, which I should not have done, apparently. Within a day or two, bleary-eyed, I woke to see an 800-word rebuttal of my comments awaiting me in my inbox. My heart rate pulsing and my heart now in my stomach, I read as the Robert George, the one the New York Times called the conservative Christian big thinker, rebutted my argument line by line. He did so, of course, with characteristic grace. But a few things struck me after reading his comments. One, he took the time to read the thoughts of a zealous millennial, which itself is an honor, it really is. Two, he took time to correct. But he did so in a way that invited me to journey with him in the quest toward greater understanding. He wasn't dismissive. He wasn't harsh. He didn't frame his rebuttal in a towering Princetonian missive. He was admonishing and encouraging as though he himself was still a student on the journey as well. What I came away with was this, that in my 30 years on this earth, never has being told I'm wrong felt so affirming.
When the book first came out, somebody, the book that we co-authored, What is Marriage? Man and Woman in Defense, available on Amazon for $10.99. Somebody posted a picture of the three of us authors dressed up at some kind of formal event, and some internet troll, some hater, wrote, so these are the gentlemen that preach discrimination is God's will? Nice suit, at least, ... Without missing a beat, it must have been like 30 seconds that the comment was up. Robbie replies, Mike, if you want to know God's will, you'll have to ask him. If you want to know our arguments, you can read the book. At no extra charge, we address the best possible objections. If you think you can defeat them, we hope you'll join the debate. By the way, the suit is by Vijay Tharwani, fabric by Xenia. That is a guy who's having fun. And the reason he's having fun is because he loves. It's because all of this is motivated not by hatred, not by a concern for the self, which can turn bitter when things are going against the self, but by a love for the cause and a love for anyone who's willing to join him in it and even to debate him on it.
Our dad would be so pleased that you are receiving this award. One of the sweetest memories I have is seeing you with my dad in the deepest conversation. Every time the two of you were together, everybody else kind of disappeared in the room, and my dad and Robbie would just become energized, talking to one another. I think there was one occasion where I actually saw real sparks flying out of both of their brains at the same time. We have a gift for you, Robbie, from Patty. She picked this out especially for you. It is a piece of Wedgwood pottery that belonged to my dad. As many of you know, Wedgwood was, like William Wilberforce, an abolitionist.
On behalf of Prison Fellowship and the Chuck Colson Center for Christian Worldview, we are pleased to present the 2015 William Wilberforce Award to Professor Robert P. George. Yeah.
Congratulations. I want to thank all of you for coming to share this evening with me and with my family. So many great and dear friends are out here, and so many heroes of the causes in which I have myself labored are here. And I just want you to know how deeply I appreciate your coming out and your listening to all those wonderful, excessively gracious things that were said about me. I want to say a special word of thanks to Emily and Chris and Cheryl and to the Colson family, and please convey my deepest gratitude to dear Patty. You know what your father meant to me. Patty knows what Chuck meant to me, and it's just very special to have you here this evening and to receive the wonderful Wedgwood token from Chuck, in a sense, through Patty, from Chuck through Patty. I will treasure it as I treasure my memories of your father and the wonderful relationship that I had with him. He was a great mentor and example to me, as he was to millions, literally millions of others. But let me tell you, especially let me tell the people at the Colson Center and the Colson family, that none of the awards that I've been blessed to receive is more important or meaningful to me than this award. And that's really for two reasons. One is my great admiration for William Wilberforce. I'll say a bit more about that later, but my great admiration for a man who dedicated his life, Sharif, to the cause. It was not about William Wilberforce. It was about defending the dignity of the oppressed, recognizing in the African slave an individual, a human being, a person made in the very image and likeness of the divine creator and ruler of the universe. Wilberforce fought against what seemed impossible, seemed like impossible odds. He endured ridicule, defamation, abuse in order to stand for the dignity of the slave. It was about that for Wilberforce. It was not about him. It wasn't about being a hero. It wasn't about the recognition that he would eventually and rightly get, but that was not what motivated him. It was this respect for the basic dignity of the human being that caused him to stand up and speak out, no matter the cost, for the oppressed. He's a great hero of mine. And to have an award named for him is far more than I deserve, but one that I very, very much welcome and am grateful for. Secondly, of course, the fact that the award was created by Chuck. As I say, Chuck was a mentor, he was an inspiration, and a very, very, very dear friend. And to receive the Wilberforce Award, an award that has been received by so many others that I admire, Cardinal Dolan, Johnny Erickson Tata, the Vicar of Baghdad, the great hero, the great courageous Anglican vicar, Andrew White. Well, my gosh, that's overwhelming, and I'm just so very, very grateful. We need, in the Christian church and the religious community more broadly, we need to put aside the old unnecessary divisions. There are theological things that are important. Someone mentioned this earlier. We have to take those differences seriously. But there's also a lot of unnecessary stuff that has divided Christian. Racial thing. Race doesn't mean it. Why should there be racial division about anything, right? So those kinds of things, we need to overcome what stands in our way because, my dear friends, faith is under severe assault. Abroad, yes, but also at home in many, many ways. And the religious community has to be united as people of faith in standing up for the right to religious freedom, the right to freedom of conscience. But we wouldn't even care about the environment and getting it right, or about the economy and getting it right, unless we had the fundamental belief in the dignity of the human being. So that's why we fight. That's why my colleagues and I at the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom fight. That's why Bill Saunders and Charmaine and other leaders of the pro-life movement fight. That's why Luis and Matt and all the people who've been so vitally involved in the marriage movement fight. It's because we know at the end of the day, what's at stake is the profound, inherent, and equal dignity of the human being. That's what I've tried to dedicate myself to. I wish I had done better. I will try to do better. But I'm deeply grateful to you for recognizing the efforts that I have made. And I want to dedicate the Wilberforce Award that I had the blessing to receive tonight to all my fellow laborers in all of these great causes, to all who work because they share my belief in the profound, inherent, and equal dignity of every member of the human family. Thank you again, and God bless you.